Are angry Taylor Swift fans about to take down one of the largest entertainment companies in world history? Okay, some of you know this about me, but I love live music, and I've loved it ever since my mom took me to a Wu-Tang Clan concert when I was in middle school. Bold move on her part, but thanks, Mom. If you ever had an awkward concert experience with a parent, let us know in the comments. That sounds fun. But anyway, in recent years, concerts have changed from a low-key indulgence to a vibe of close your eyes and type in your credit card number and try not to wonder how you're going to afford groceries next week. Things came to a head recently when an army of Taylor Swift fans logged on to Ticketmaster determined to snag tickets to her first tour in 5 years. Well, the site crashed as people who patiently waited to get to the front of the digital queue were unceremoniously bumped to the back, while other fans promised presale codes found their supposed priority status actually hurt their chances of scoring tickets. Data analysis from one survey found that people trying to buy on Ticketmaster had a 57% success rate compared to SeatGeek's 70%. Things got so bad so quick that Ticketmaster had to cancel its Friday sale altogether, blaming sky-high demand and insufficient inventory. The chaos of the rollout left fans livid, with some even suing Ticketmaster for their woes. The botched rollout had Swifties across the internet picking up their hammers and sickles and decrying capitalism.
Everybody wins in this but the fans. Everybody wins. Anybody above us wins.
But it also seems emblematic of something much bigger. Ticketmaster has been systematically enraging and disappointing music lovers for decades. I mean, just look at the most recent incident with the site selling tons of fake tickets to a Bad Bunny concert. But things have only gotten worse since it merged with Live Nation in 2010. Now, thanks to the corporation's increasing stranglehold over the live event industry, they control 70% of the marketplace, Ticketmaster has effectively become the only game in town. It's now practically impossible for an artist to tour without playing nice with the behemoth. Major artists have tried and failed to do this, but we'll talk about that more later. And what about us, the fans? Now accustomed to being gouged for all we're worth by Ticketmaster, we've perhaps also become complacent. It's symptomatic of the leisure marketplace at large, where anything that brings us just a modicum of joy is increasingly cost prohibitive and often for opaque reasons. From Airbnb's significant cleaning fees to airlines charging extra for legroom, checked bags, and tiny little bottles of booze, it's getting really expensive to just enjoy yourself every once in a while. So how did we get here? What happens when just a few companies have a stranglehold on our collective access to fun and entertainment? And can it tell us anything about where America's market economy is headed? I mean, spoiler alert, but if you've watched this channel ever before, you know it's going nowhere good. So let's dig in with this Wisecrack Edition, Is Everything Ticketmaster Now? And before we get into it, I want to tell you about a way to have a lot of fun without extra fees or an algorithm making you pay a lot of money. It's called Wisecrack Live. It's free. It's our stream. It happens right here every Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific. It's very fun. We watch videos. We talk about things. The chat's really great. We have special guests on sometimes. You know, why wouldn't you want to do it? So check it out, Wisecrack Live, 11 a.m. on Thursdays, Pacific time. And now let's learn about why Ticketmaster is ruining my life. To figure out how Ticketmaster turned concert tickets into a luxury good, it helps to start by figuring out how they managed to get so powerful. To do that, let's look at how America has historically prevented companies from turning into empires by using antitrust laws, i.e., mostly federal laws that regulate how businesses operate and behave in order to encourage competition. There are three big antitrust laws. So first, we got the Sherman Act of 1890, which the Supreme Court later called a comprehensive charter of economic liberty aimed at preserving free and unfettered competition. Then there's the Federal Trade Commission Act of 1914, which created the FTC, whose job is to enforce federal consumer protection laws that prevent fraud, deception, and unfair business practices. Lastly, there's the Clayton Act of the same year, which elaborates on the Sherman Act with specifics about price discrimination and anti-competitive mergers, while also making strikes, boycotts, and unions legal. These laws are meant to prevent a corporation from becoming a monopoly, i.e. a single seller of a unique product, whether through mergers or other anti-competitive practices. This is good because monopolies' outsized powers are harmful to both consumers and other businesses. The entertainment industry is no stranger to monopoly. For decades, the Hollywood studio system practiced what's called vertical integration, which means that they owned or had contracts with the companies in charge of basically every element of the film supply chain. Actors and directors were contracted to specific studios. The studios owned the cinemas, and they sometimes even owned the film processing companies. This gave them incredible control over who was allowed to show their movies, allowing them to strong-arm theaters into showing or not showing certain films. It was super difficult for independent theaters to compete and thrive. But in 1930, the Supreme Court decided this was pretty sus. The movie studios were in fact monopolies. But in 1933, in the wake of the Depression, studios begged FDR to delay the breaking up of the monopolies so that weary Americans could get their Shirley Temple fix.
Happy landing on a chocolate bar.
Their pleas worked, and he let them hang on to control under the National Industrial Recovery Act. After years of ensuing court battles, in 1948, the Supreme Court finally managed to dismantle the Hollywood studio system and break up their cinema monopolies. Now, dismantling the studio system had a lot of positive effects for both mid-century creators and consumers of entertainment. In addition to helping small theaters compete, it also allowed people working in the entertainment industry who'd been stuck in contracts to branch out, especially into the medium of television, which boomed as a result. Ticketmaster is now being investigated for the same practices the movie studios once perfected, in terms of owning every step of the ticket buying and live event process. They're basically the only place you can get tickets other than buying them scalped on a resale site for even more dough. What's more, in 2019, Ticketmaster was found to be scalping their own tickets with software that allowed resellers to buy tickets on Ticketmaster and instantly post them to resale sites. And just like studios could bully movie theaters into showing or not showing certain films, the Justice Department found in 2019 that Ticketmaster and Live Nation were threatening concert venues with losing access to tours if they used other ticket selling services. Musician Clyde Lawrence of the band Lawrence explains the effect on working musicians in a New York Times article. He notes that while artists previously relied on a competitive field of promoters to organize their tours and pay upfront costs, they're now basically required to work with Live Nation. And Live Nation famously makes tons of money inflating ticket costs and additional fees without throwing any of that extra money to artists. So like next time you're mad at your favorite band for this, like probably not their fault. Meanwhile, its subsidiary companies often take big cuts on merchandise sales and all the money made on like bar sales and coat check sales. Because streaming services are also screwing over artists, a lot of musicians almost exclusively rely on tours unless they're also baristas. And yet, even successful artists ranging from Santigold to Animal Collective have recently canceled tours due to high costs and low rewards. Meanwhile, Live Nation reaps record revenues. Consumers feel the effects because Ticketmaster notoriously has absurd additional fees that can come out to as much as half the entire ticket price. Now, they're able to get away with this low-key extortion because, well, you've got nowhere else to go. Ticketmaster also uses dynamic pricing, which basically means that prices change depending on how high demand is, especially the demand for the best seats. Companies like Uber and Amazon also use dynamic pricing, but we'll talk about that more in a second. Now, the true value of those tickets then is whatever people are willing to pay in the moment. Now, dynamic pricing uses an automated, instantaneous logic of supply and demand, which when it goes unchecked can lead to ridiculous situations where Bruce Springsteen tickets spiked to as much as $5,000 a seat. While some people were willing to pay half a year's rent for the privilege of hearing Born to Run, it screwed over anyone who couldn't afford the average ticket price, which was in the mid $200 range, and that was before fees. So while Ticketmaster has argued that they're merely fighting back against the scalping markets, they've essentially done so by charging everyone scalper prices. While Ticketmaster's dynamic pricing only began in 2011, artists and consumers alike have been trying to fight back against its power since the mid-90s. Pearl Jam famously tussled with Ticketmaster about their $18 tickets, insisting fees shouldn't eclipse $1.80. Ticketmaster had a nice chuckle at that, and so Pearl Jam attempted to launch a tour that circumvented the giant in hopes of making making tickets more affordable to fans. The band was also approached by the Justice Department to investigate Ticketmaster's practices. Pearl Jam argued that Ticketmaster had purchased most of its former rivals, meaning they could charge exorbitant fees and get venues to sign exclusivity agreements by offering 20% of the profits. Now, venues got a sweet deal, while consumers were left selling their firstborn kids to watch the Goo Goo Dolls from the nosebleeds. And if you're one of those kids who got sold, here's all I want to say to you. It's better that you got sold to other parents than raised by people who would sell a kid to go to a Goo Goo Dolls concert. Pearl Jam attempted to only pay venues that didn't work with Ticketmaster, but it was not a success and they had to cancel many tour dates. Now, according to Far Out magazine, Pearl Jam's crusade ended up costing them $2 million. Still, it created bad publicity for Ticketmaster, and bands like Green Day and The Offspring followed suit, taking financial hits to lower the cost of their tickets. Ticketmaster subsequently lowered fees for those tickets in response, but it didn't meaningfully change the company's practices, especially since most artists can't afford to lose millions of dollars to make a point. A class action lawsuit finally attacked Ticketmaster in 2015, arguing that their assortment of fees, billed as things like processing and shipping and transaction fees.
If you could do it orderly and not have counterfeits and not have duplicates, you could really make a better business.
Were really just profits to the company. Upon losing, Ticketmaster offered $383 million in discounts on future tickets to people who qualified for the class action suit. But as anyone who was part of that remembers, it was nearly impossible to use those discounts, which were only available for certain concerts at certain venues for a limited number of tickets, and thus they sold out quickly. We live in a time of corporate consolidation, where big mergers and anti-competitive business practices affect so many aspects of our lives, and increasingly, the ways we try to enjoy ourselves. From Meta buying up competing social media platforms, or just straight up copying their ideas, to Warner Brothers' giant merger that led to tons of projects being canceled, to HBO Max removing content without warning, it increasingly feels like we're at the whim of mega corporations, and we get to pay $14.99 a month for the privilege. Although by the time this video airs, you'll have gotten an email that says it's now $16.99 a month, so sorry. More than ever, it seems that leisure is becoming an unattainable luxury for most. American industry has, since the Second Industrial Revolution, been dominated by huge companies that flirt with monopolization. While that's certainly accelerated in recent years, what's new in this day and age is the dynamic pricing models, which are literally designed to get people to spend the absolute maximum that they are capable of while producing a constant feeling of scarcity and anxiety. The result is inevitable. Consumers suffer. As Professors Alexander J. McKay and Samuel Weinstein write, algorithmic pricing can lead to higher prices for consumers in competitive markets, and even in the absence of collusion. Higher prices arise from the automated nature of algorithms, impacting any market where firms price algorithmically. Thus, pricing algorithms that are already in widespread use may allow sellers to extract a massive amount of wealth from consumers. While this sucks, it isn't necessarily the end of the world when it comes to you not getting to see BTS live. But it becomes a far more serious issue when retailers selling household essentials, such as Amazon, employ it. For example, a New York Times article reported that in 2021, Amazon holiday catalogs were sent out to customers without any prices. This is symptomatic of the new model of online shopping. According to MIT economics professors Glenn Ellison and Sarah Fisher Ellison, online retail has offered consumer convenience in exchange for obfuscation, i.e. increasingly murky pricing. They explain, to the extent that there is more obfuscation going on, consumers pay more for everything. And even when Amazon uses dynamic pricing to lower costs in order to compete with other companies offering lower prices, this merely works to cement their dominance over online retail. They already account for nearly 40% of online retail in America. Now, most companies can't afford to knock down their prices the way Amazon can. Amazon's gargantuan size lets them dominate despite their very low profit margins. Smaller companies literally can't compete. Across the board, a lot of this is also about confusing consumers, tricking them into thinking they're getting a good price while muddying the waters on the actual charge they'll end up paying. Like how you might be convinced to book the Airbnb with the lowest price despite the sky-high cleaning fee simply because it feels like you're getting a good deal. As Jason Murray, former longtime Amazon employee and CEO of an e-commerce startup, told The Times, this is the game that companies are playing by removing the reference points so people think they're getting a good price. Ultimately then, Ticketmaster's dominance over the live music industry and the way it uses algorithms to extract more money from customers is symptomatic of an economy where consumers increasingly have fewer choices and less certainty about what they should be paying. After years of dealing with Ticketmaster's insane ticket fees, it just starts to feel kind of normal. And if normal means you stop going to concerts because it just doesn't seem worth it anymore, well, you can spend your free time online giving clicks to advertisers while making free content for companies owned by other billionaires, or I don't know, move to the country and eat a lot of peaches. At the end of the day, it's Ticketmaster's world, and we're just living in it. But what do you guys think? Has Ticketmaster ruined concert going? Is it just one symptom of an economy that's increasingly working against us and against our right to party? Let us know what you think in the comments. And also remember, if you don't want to use Ticketmaster, I'm sure you can go see some great local music where the bands don't use Ticketmaster, and that'd be fun. So shout out your favorite local band in the comment maybe. Thank you so much for all of your support, all your comments, your likes, your clicks, your subscriptions, your eyeballs. We really appreciate it. And thank you so much to our patrons for all your support. If you're interested in getting some more content from us, getting videos early without ads, jumping on our Discord, check out our Patreon. There's a link in the description. Most importantly, thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you later.